And all right, so the initial verse, when causes and conditions come together, their workings are difficult to fathom. And so if goes back to our beginning, where did we come from? And it's what I say is beginningless time, right? So and that's what we just accept what it is. But over this period, we have just imagine now through innumerable paths, we have created a lot of causes. So these fundamental causes are deeply buried, and it's hard for us to understand how these workings arise from the causes and condition and the effect that arising from that. So awaiting the coming together of the conditions. So then if we take on this life and we understand the Dhamma, that all of our life becomings will unfold, whether pleasant or unpleasant or otherwise. And so we need to understand when we apply the Dhamma or daily life, that all these becomings that come to us. So this journey of life is all about learning from all these conversions. So with pure causes, positive conditions, and the sense of body, the true Dharma or the great vehicle returns us to true suchness. So what is pure causes? So pure causes is for us to undertake, because then that's why we undertake in our cultivation to grow in virtues, which come to you in the next slide. So we constantly give rise to discrimination. We can thoroughly understand the convergence of causes and conditions. We will realize it's incredible. So remember there was one sharing that I mentioned, that even when the Buddha turned the first view of Dharma on the Four Noble Truths, and Four Noble Truths is about the causes of suffering. So even that for the 5 ecstatic practitioners that the Buddha shared with the 5 ecstatic, and that's the formation of the Sangha at the Deer Park in Sarnath in India. The Buddha had to go through the tears. So I understand the Buddha actually had to taught it 3 times. Now, why 3 times? Because we need to understand what these causes, condition, and effects are. Now, the causes actually arise from our own mental affliction. And this mental affliction arises from these internal boundaries that we have. These internal boundaries, it grows from our platform of desire, what I like, what I dislike. So the moment I have like and dislike, I will discriminate. And I don't know about you, but certainly I have to recognize my own affliction. And I'm very lucky to have my home sister who will correct me most of the time. So, and I think this is the part that we have to be very vigilant about. So by gently dissolving resentment and hatred, it can turn into gratitude. And what Sister Waifeng shared in her example, the dissolution can lead to realization. So this realization is one of purification, and going back to the initial verse that we should be undertaking. So becomings that unfold in our life, people who resent us, people who doesn't like us, but more importantly, that in our practice of the purification are 2 things. Number 1 is that we refrain from giving back to others what they give to us. In other words, whatever negative affliction, defilements they pass to us, we just quietly, not to say receive it, we do not react to it, and that's important. And but what more importantly is what we're going to do about that, and that's the wholesome practice. So one is to refrain, the other one is to cultivate, and so there are 2 parts to this particular practice. So continuation of the parable of this poor son. So his father was looking for him, but he was not looking for his father. I guess it's like the same thing as a parent. right? So, and the child will wander off, and we want to look for the child. Doesn't mean that the child will keep wandering for the parents. So the poor son wandered from village to village, passing through many kingdoms and cities until he finally arrived in the city where his father had settled. So when he arrived at the father's house and was loitering outside, this is an analogy for us. We are learning the Buddha's way, have not yet thoroughly understood them. So it's like we are wandering outside the Buddha Dharma door, and we haven't thoroughly understood them. And this is part of the journey of learning. And this journey of learning is about knowing, understanding, realizing, and then adopting into practice, a part of a purification. So wandering from village to village is an analogy of the three realms and the six destinies. I will come to that in the next page. So villages is an analogy of the five aggregates. So when is this five aggregates actually arising from the interaction of six roots and the six dusts, which will obviously give rise to form, feeling, perception, mental formation, and consciousness. So the Buddha first taught the tranquil and clear state of Avatamsaka, and that is the first teaching that the Buddha taught, the first period of teaching, and it's about a great awakening. So referring to arrival in the father's city, the great vehicle where the Buddha abides. So where does the Buddha abide when in this parable that in this particular chapter that's taught? And that is where they abide in the state of supreme enlightenment. That's where the Buddha taught Avatamsaka. And that's why the great city is referring to that. So when we want to return, that essentially what it means is that what we want to do is the aspiration of Vapo is the state of Buddhahood that we should be undertaking. And that is already in your four bodhisattva vow, which is the last vow. So the lessons learned. So without the Dharma in our hearts, we are extremely foolish and deluded with greed, anger, ignorance. And this is because the five aggregates causes us to cling to our delusions. So we do not understand, and this delusion is obviously it has been accumulated in innumerable kalpas, and that's why we need to understand ourselves. And the delusion is actually about not understanding, not knowing of ourselves. So the 18 realms are the kingdoms, and the 12 entrances are the cities. So the 12 entrances, obviously, yes, got the 12 sense organs. Again, you got the 12 sense objects, plus another 6 modes of consciousness. The 6 consciousness are the eye, ear, nose, body, and mind. So that gives you the 18 realms. And and obviously, arising from all these things, there's a lot of courses that we create. So if we have created many courses in the past, certainly we want to, when they converge with the condition that arises in this lifetime, we do not want to react. We do not want to react because we do not want to create any more new courses. But what we created in the past, nothing we can do about it. The causes are there, they're lying deep inside. When the condition is right, they will manifest. So when they do manifest as effects, we purify, we refrain from reacting, and we cultivate the virtues, and that's the part of that's why the journey in front of us is very long. So everything we see and understand is from 12 entrances. The reasons we are severely deluded by the form. So when we sense what they say, we see the objects, they see the form, and this as a result of which we will stir up, with the stirring up of the five aggregates, feeling will arise, and we start reacting. Then there's a reason why when we are in practice, we need to be undertake what precepts to refrain from reacting. At the same time, be in a state of stillness so that we understand how to respond with wisdom. That the Buddha Dharma can wash away our ignorance and afflictions with the Noble Eightfold Path. And the key of which is having the right understanding, the right thoughts, because it's from there then you give rise to the right speech and the right action. And it's 37 practice to enlightenment, the 3 4s, the 2 5s, and the 1 7 and the 1 8, to develop our wisdom life. So gradually, everyone understood through this periods of teaching, the Gamma, Vaipuja, Prajna teachings. Obviously, before that was Avatamsaka period, so that gives right to 4 plus the Lotus Sutra will be the 5. So by the time the prana teachings were given on existence and emptiness, and that's why this teaching, the Paramita Sutra. So in the past, they have either clung to emptiness and existence, and whether it's graduating to which is purely existence or emptiness, and what the Buddha said, will walk the middle way, which is the wondrous existence in true emptiness. So gradually, they had already arrived in the Buddha city, the great vehicle city, and that's where Buddha said that door, or the Bodhisattva door, is a door to Buddhahood. So understand the great importance of convergence of causes and conditions, so that therefore we can be in practice. They purify the past causes, so that we can then, the last line in today's Master's stanza is to set up these pure causes. So in contemplation. So have you ever wondered why someone has spiritual guides and fortune to develop? And all these things have been developed from many, many lifetimes. They are earned over many lifetimes. And when the causes and condition converge in this lifetime, one is able to reactivate the spiritual progress that has left from the past, which is referring to today's initial verse at the last line. So, and these are the pure causes that we need to plant. But even if we're cultivating in this lifetime, there will be challenges in our life, and that's why we got to be so mindful that we need to really understand what is in front of us when it manifests. So when it manifests, we got to refrain from reacting unwholesomely and apply the right efforts to respond. And obviously, we've got to respond based on the Dharma that you understand. So that's the reason why realizing and practicing, that was the last journey of learning. So in the same way, you have earned from the past to deserve the path that we have undertaken right now. So there are merits that we have undertaken, that we are harvesting in this life right now, to be in the path. But we also need to understand in this path, we must not deviate in this, so that we can then arrive at the great city. So you must not let up, but stand up in your practice. So on relationship, I mean, a lot of relationship, yes, they say it's fated, and we only from past affinity. So the mind of this life does not understand the past. But the higher consciousness does, and the Buddha has shown it. I'm sure there's enlightened can see what has happened in the past, but we haven't attained that. So the unfoldment of causes and conditions are fated, but the destiny is not. And the difference between fate and destiny, and obviously, causes and conditions, they have done it, and the effects, they're all fated. We have to face it. But what are you going to do about those effects? And they will decide our destiny, and that choice is ours. So the destiny is in your hands, and how you can purify the past causes. So accept the fate of karma, and the destiny is fated. And people who understand this is fated, and they say my destiny is fated, but that's not necessarily the case. But if you accept the fate of karma to purify, and the destiny is in your hands, and that's the difference that in our practice, and what Master in essence is telling us today. Okay, Kanan, brother and sister, thank you.
Kanan so much, Brother Chin. I will accept you to change my fate, Brother Chin. Wonderful sharing, wonderful.